what kind of things did you have to change in your process for the master's versus PhD?
Yeah. I wouldn't say there were like too different, but it was distinctly different because this was more so on like the research part of it instead of just like me and my story into public health, which isn't always the case, but I just found it like that was like just a distinct difference for PhD applications. So it really made me be intentional and much more thoughtful of like what I actually wanted to study and what I actually wanted to do post PhD, because I am very proud of past Bryce because he was intentional about like remembering that the PhD is like supposed to get you to like where you want to go. It's not sort of like this end goal. So I think like going in with that mindset, like I am going to be fine either way, even though it was such an emotional to get through applications. But I think like remembering that the program was only like one way of like doing what I wanted to do. So just kind of coming to terms with that. And yeah, so really just like the heavy on the research component of the application is like pretty much the key. And like I'm sure other PhD students would vouch similar sentiments, but that's just like the biggest distinction from my end. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense because that's literally what you're gonna be dedicating your time for the next 4+ years. So it is, and I think like in that process of writing that, you really are reflecting and thinking on, okay, is this like what do I really want to do for the next couple of years? What really do I want to like get this expert in? So that makes sense, and appreciate you sharing that. So you're in your program now. I'm not sure if these current positions that you have, but at the Yale School of Public Health, you're a graduate research assistant, a T32 pre-doctoral research fellow, a graduate teaching fellow, and you're also a research mentor at the Lumiere Education. So tell us about those positions.
Yeah. So part of like me being here is working with faculty mentor. So I'm a research assistant for them on some of their projects. I'm also in like a training program funded by the NIH, the T32. So it's basically like I get together with other fellows and every week, and we kind of like engage in like different learning activities. A lot of it is like grant writing because that's a big part of like the profession, but also just like other things that are not so obvious regarding like the curriculum of like PhD training and postdoc training. So that's been like a very good support space, a community that meets every week. I'm actually not teaching this semester, but leading up to this semester, I was just like a teaching fellow for some classes. And it's essentially similar to my experience as a master's student doing the teaching stuff. And it was just a really good way to like supplement my pedagogy and like learning what it means to like facilitate a class, how to design one from scratch, like all of the nitty gritty of like what goes into like leading that. So that's been a really good experience so far. And I hope I get to pick that up once I finish this semester. And yeah, and the Lumiere education job, I do it sort of like as a consultant gig. It's essentially me helping like high school students kind of lead their own research projects. Most of the time it's like me helping them going through the fundamental motions of like research, like what is a question, like what are the objectives, like all of those things. And it's really like cool to have that time, that valuable time of where they are. Not one, because it's like so impressive that they're like seeking out these opportunities, but I have other things to say on that for another conversation. But I do think like it's taught me like how to just like show up as a better mentor for people who are just entering this type of work at different phases of their life. So yeah, that's been like a really good experience too, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's important. Being able to speak to people at all levels, is very important. But for the T32, is that something with the NIH? Is that something you applied for? Or is that something you just naturally get as a PhD student?
Yes and no. So some PhD programs like have a separate application process for those grants because the T32 actually funds like a lot of your training, like the stipend, the tuition, the fees, and all that stuff. And that may come often as like a separate application to the PhD applications that you have to apply for, or you don't go through like the standard application process, but are just kind of interviewed for it by virtue through the PhD applications if you get an interview. So it kind of varies, I guess. But yeah, I hope that nuance description helps.
That's very helpful. Like someone like me that's very ignorant to these kind of things. So I appreciate you sharing that.